Hello and welcome to Let's Talk Tarot. This is the 6th card of our 22 card Major Arcana Marathon, where we go through each of the cards in sequence, looking at the name, the number and the symbolism behind each of the cards. If you are new to the channel, please subscribe below. If not, welcome back and go and make yourself a cup of tea, settle down as we discuss the Lovers card. Hi guys, welcome back. So we are talking about the 6th card in the tarot card sequence, which is the Lovers. Before we get onto that, I just want to let the Patreon people know that there is a handout or a cheat sheet of this card uploaded to Patreon. So by the time that you watch this video, which is a week earlier than everyone else, there is already a handout up there for you to download, read over, make notes on, whatever you want. It has everything in this episode plus a few more little tidbits, so go and check it out. For those of you that aren't part of my Patreon, please consider doing so. There is a link down below in the description and you get a lot more free stuff. So you get the handouts as well as some extra bonus episodes, some stuff on astrology and tarot, and you also see me playing around with some new decks and trying to read from decks that I'm just not familiar with, which is great fun. So for those of you new here, I use 2 different tarot decks to illustrate these videos. For those of you that aren't new, phase out, have a little bit of happy revelry whilst I just explain these tarot cards. So we use the Tarot de Marseille, which is a French style tarot from about the 1700s. This is the Veritable Tarot de Marseille, which is a restored deck by Kris Hadar, based on the 1760s Convert deck. So French tarot, 18th century. We also use this, which is a very, very popular Rider-Waite-Smith deck, which most people learn on. This is the Western occult Golden Dawn attribute inspired tarot of the kind of early 20th century, 1909, 1920s. The artist was Pamela Coleman Smith under the authorship of A.E. Waite. A.E. Waite was part of the Golden Dawn, and this was in the hiatus, and I think he was kind of had his Rosicrucian order in mind when he was designing this deck. So before this card, you've got kind of playing cards. The tarot is playing cards, and the Italian tradition, so the Tarocchi cards, the Visconti Sforza and the Sola Busca, those style tarot this way. Between these you've got the French occult school of tarot, so including Levis Levy and Swiss occultist Oswald Worth, and a few decks, which quite a lot of their principles are retroactively fitted onto these cards. And then from here onwards, you've got occult tarots in the UK, in America, and so on and so forth, including things like the Thoth Tarot, which is much later, 1960s-ish. I think this was eventually published, and those kind of occult attributions in the cards that kind of were popular after this point. You may have a tarot deck that, well, the reason why I do this is that you should have a tarot deck that falls within one of these traditions, that it'll either be based on the Marseille or some principles in the Marseille, and sometimes it'll be based on the Rider-Waite-Smith. There is other tarot that kind of falls outside of this camp that doesn't make a reference to it, but this is the best I can do to kind of cater towards as many people as possible. So hopefully it'll fit. If not, I'm really sorry. All the principles that we talk about in these videos will still apply. They just might not be visually represented in the tarot that you've got. So take them on board, excuse me, and still learn them, but feel free to look at the unique imagery in your cards and see how that may change or alter the meanings that we talk about in these videos. Cool. Okay, so people that are used to my video, you can phase back in as we talk about this. So we will be talking about the name, the number, and the imagery. Let us start with the name because it is so easy on this card. In some cards this differs, it has been changed over the years. In this card it is the same. This is the Lovers, albeit in French. This is the Lovers. The Lovers obviously refers to people in love. It does not refer to love itself. It refers to the lovers, the people that are experiencing love or feeling love or are in love. So we, even without looking at the imagery, we know we are talking about people that have feelings of love, maybe towards each other or maybe towards someone else, who knows. So we are talking about the people in this tarot card. And that is one of the key meanings of some of the traditional meanings. There is another school of tarot. There is, and I've only read about this, I've never actually seen one, and I can't name the deck that has it. I have read that there is the Choice as a name for this tarot card. I've not seen it. It's apparently in older decks, but I'm not quite sure which ones. I don't think it's in the Marseille, otherwise I would have known about it. So if you have a card that says the Choice on it, it is still this card, and it picks up on a traditional meaning of this card. Cool. So that's all there really is to say about the name. It's pretty simple and straightforward, and there's no major changes, so we're all good. Let us talk about the number. So the number is the same on both of these cards. It doesn't change. There are a couple of cards that do a jiggery pokery dance around the tarot. This is not one of them. So it is 6 across the board. Unless you've got a really weird tarot deck that I'm unaware of, it's pretty much 6 across all the board. So in Roman numerals, 6 is VI. We are still in the first septenary, 1 through to 7. If you have seen the Major Arcana introduction video, you know what I'm talking about. If not, go and refer to that video. But we are still in the world of material concerns and material matters, a mundane world. But we are towards the end of it. We're one card, we're on the penultimate card. When I look at the Roman numerals, I think of the Latin word via. This is not some sort of esoteric school of numerology, it is just my brain. So when I think of the the Latin word via, I think of roads and paths as a definition, and that is interesting because in cartomancy, in traditional playing card reading, the number 6 is seen as roads or paths or journeys. So the reason why is because the pips, oh, out of focus, there you go. The pips line up in 2 columns that make it look like a path or a road going down the middle. So this card is a road or a path lined with diamonds, i.e. riches and money. So this is the road lined with riches, or the path to riches, or the path to fortune. It could also be read as a career choice that leads to money in the end. Yeah. So because of that, it's a good way of illustrating this card. So I think of roads and crossroads, places where we have to make a choice or a decision. And choices and decisions, as I mentioned with the name, is one of the traditional meanings of this card. This card can mean a choice or a decision that one has to make, sometimes between 2 things that are very hard to choose between, that appeal, or sometimes between a vice and a virtue, and we'll look at that in a minute. The other thing about number 6s is that they are a triangular number and a perfect number in Pythagorean number theory. So what that means, very simply, is that some numbers make a triangle. Cool. So 1 isn't a triangular number, it is just a dot. If you add 2 more dots, that is a triangle. So that is 3, which is a triangular number. Adding 3 more dots is 6, and it makes a triangle, so it's a triangular number. It was also seen as a perfect number because the 1, 2 and 3, 1 plus 2 plus 3 equals 6, obviously, but 1 times 2 times 3 also equals 6. So the product and the sum of its components are the same. This makes it a perfect number in Pythagorean number theory. I think perfect numbers in real mathematics are slightly different, and it relies on factors. Here it's just this. So a perfect number, what does that mean? Well, 6s are sometimes seen as being a perfection or a unity. So if we look at the book of Genesis, where the God made the world in 7 days, well, it wasn't really 7, was it? It was 6 plus 1, because he rested on the 7th day. So this is seen as a number of perfection, that the world was created, the God made the world in 6 days, and therefore is perfect. 7 is sometimes also seen as a perfect number, just to confuse matters. So I think in the book of Genesis, and I'd need to double check this, but I'm just going to say it anyway, I think the actual passage splits it up into 1, 2 and 3. I think it says on the first day God created this, on the second and third day God creates this, and then on the 4th, 5th and 6th day God creates this. I'm not quite sure, but I think so. Anyway, not too hugely important. The other thing it's about unity. It's about opposites coming together and forming a unity. So we see this in the Lovers, but just in terms of occult theory, we have 2 triangles intersecting. We have 3 here and 3 here, which creates the 6-pointed star, or the Star of David. In occultism, this is the combination of opposites. It's about the active male principles and the passive female principles in that horrible traditional binary that most of occultism is based on. That doesn't quite equate to real life. So it's a union of opposites. The other thing that it is also about the elements. So we have, going into this, those that follow me on Instagram might have already seen me draw this, but we have fire and water. Yeah, the spirit floating above the waters, another Bible quote, combining, and then out of that we get earth and air. Yeah, so air is this upright fire triangle with a line through it from water, so it's the intermingling of those two. And same with earth, it's the water triangle with the line from the fire triangle. So so we get the 4 elements also out of 6. So that union of opposites is what creates the elements. So we see it as a unity of opposites, and we see that also in the 6 here. And we also see it in the tarot card, where, well, especially in the Rider-Waite-Smith more so, where we've got a woman and a male, these supposedly binary things that are opposite. So the number 6 can also mean free will, as well as harmony, as well as a balance between good and evil. Once again, that duality. We will go back to that idea of free will in a bit. Let me make a note of that, because that's quite a cool concept. So that's the number 6 in a nutshell. It's about that duality of opposites and that unity of opposites, as well as perfection, as well as a road, or as well as a via, as well as those crossroads. Cool. So let's have a look at the imagery, and this is where one of the very few cards where the Rider-Waite-Smith and the Marseille is very different. You can kind of see that here. It's got these 4 people, well, 3 and a Cupid, and here you've got 3 people, 2 and an angel. There is a lot of intermingling here. and action. Here it's very, very passive and separate and distant. So it's very different. It's one of the few that really pushes outside of this Marseille tradition. So they obviously had very strong differing opinions about these cards, and let's have a look why. Let's take a look at the Marseille card first. So there's not an awful lot of hidden symbols here. Let's talk about the items in the card, and then we'll talk about the kind of general meaning. So we've got the Cupid here that hovers over and aiming an arrow. So this can be seen as Cupid's arrow, love is blind. Sometimes on some of the cards he literally is blindfolded, here he's not. So that love is blind kind of principle and that destiny around love. In the triplicity, this group of three, we've got a young man that's flanked either side. That sounds like army, I didn't mean it, but flanked either side by a woman. Most decks have this as a dark-haired woman and this has a fair-haired woman. Traditionally, that is supposed to symbolize this woman as a woman of vice and this as a woman of virtue, because historically and traditionally dark-haired people were seen as more evil in art. I don't know why this is such a colorist thing, and people with fair hair were seen as virtuous and angelic. I suppose I fall somewhere between the two. So that's where this is. This character here is sometimes commented on as being the magician or the juggler from the first tarot card. And as I said in the previous cards, there's that pairing. So the 3 and the 4 is paired together, and 3 and 4 added together is 7. So the Emperor and the Empress is together. The High Priestess and the Hierophant, or the Pope and the Popess, are together, and that's 1 and 5, that's 7. So this in some ways links to that first tarot card, and this is, you know, maybe running before you can walk. I can't find it off the top of my head. There it is. So sometimes, I mean, this is the Rider-Waite-Smith because I can't quite see where the Marseille tarot has gone. But this can be seen as the young man in this, and he's kind of got to a point where he's having to decide between two women. And that's another one of the main kind of meanings. So this young man is sometimes seen as deciding between these two suitors. So thus that decision and that choice is one of the definitions of this card, and especially in the Marseille tradition, this is about choice. It can also be seen, and it has been said, that this young man has gone to his mother with this suitor and is arguing about their upcoming nuptials. There is a hint a Freudian interpretation here about Oedipus and God knows what. So that I'm not a big fan of it, so I'm just not going to discuss it. But there is that. So you can either see it as a choice, or you can either see it as one of petition towards, you know, an elder. This is quite interesting because up until this card, we've had quite a lot of authority cards. We've had the High Priestess, which is about, you know, going to someone who is wise and intuitive. We have had the Empress, who is a ruler. We have had the Emperor, who is also a ruler. We've also had the Pope, who is also a holy person that gives masses on to the many, like a holy person that presents religiosity to the masses. Here we've got a very different card. This kind of breaks the tradition. So instead of having authority figures, we have a young man here petitioning. So this could be seen as kind of that adolescence period where a young man and a young woman would kind of break away from the ideals and the lessons and what's expected of them by their parents, and then start asserting themselves. I think Rachel Pollock, in her book 78 Days of Wisdom, kind of talks about how love is one of those first things that adolescents kind of do, that is that first little rebellion and that first little bit of independence, that by falling in love we don't necessarily appeal to the traditions and the values of our mum. The people that we tend to bring to our family are not the ones that have been chosen by our parents. So it's that little act of rebellion. So sixes can be rebellious. You know, this could be about that stage in life of asserting one's independence, asserting one's own free will, as we mentioned with the number 6, to find love. And as we're talking about the lovers, we're talking about the people, and not love as a concept. Yeah, we're not talking about love in its perfect state. We are talking about the love that is felt by ordinary people, and love can be messy. Oh God, it's true. So here we have that kind of mess, and whether it's a man on the crossroads between two suitors, or whether it's a man having to petition his mother to say that he's chosen the right young woman to run off with, get married with, you know, whatever. We've got that choice. There are a couple of things that kind of the traditional French school of tarot point out on this card, and they're not huge big things, they're not really like hidden symbols, but let me just jump over to the desktop just to kind of show anyway. So here you can see my favourite of the Marseille tradition cards. This is the Madini deck of about 1739, I think this one is. This is the son of the other Madini. There were 2 Madini card makers, the father and the son. This is the son. I like this one because I just think the faces are nice, even though some of the cards can look a bit like they've been coloured in by someone on their school break. But hey ho. So here we are. The thing that I think is very obvious from this, and not so much the cleaned up Veritable Tarot Marseille, is 2 things. So if we look at the arms here, there's a bit of a state of confusion. Some of the French tarot people refer to these arms as confused to the ownership. You know, this arm here is not too brilliantly clear whether it's actually this guy's left arm, or whether his left arm is actually behind the woman and this is actually the woman's right arm. And same here, this hand that goes to the belt, is that actually his arm or is that her arm? And then this arm that goes down here, is that his arm or is that her arm? So this sense of messy confusion can add to that kind of confusion aspect to this card, or that understanding of confusion. It's not a real biggie, it's not something that is deeply hidden in this card, which is why I'm not drawing all over it like I normally do, but it adds into that choice. If you've got a choice to make, sometimes it's a bit confusing, it's a bit messy as to which choice you need to make, and that's a reference to this. The other thing that sometimes is referred to is these sleeves, these very medieval style cloaks and gowns have these sleeves that make these people look like they're almost winged birds or winged angels. Both are completely fine interpretations. So sometimes that can mean messages, especially ones of love, but it can mean kind of, you know, divine support in this choice, in a choice that you have to make, or a divine message, that kind of thing. So those are the only 2 kind of really hidden things that I can see in this card, and they're not huge. In this card in the Madini, whilst I've got it up, you can see that this is blonde and this is blonde haired. They're all blonde haired, which kind of throws caution to my wind of a dark haired one and a fair haired one. But this is an older person, this is a younger person. Cool. So that's it. That's the quickest hidden symbol session ever. We can go back to the cards. So the only thing that we haven't spoken about this card is this sun, and this is more prevalent in this card than it is in this card. So let's jump over to the Rider-Waite-Smith. This is very, very different. We have a sun in its zenith. We have like a noonday sun, like a sun at its height and it's at its most hottest. And we have this angel that has these bright red rings. That's a kind of almost like a little bit of a hint towards Eros, and that kind of fiery passion. We kind of see these flames in that headdress. So this is kind of along those lines. I think Paul Christian refers to this as Raphael as an angel, but yeah, this kind of red kind of hints more to me if we're looking at one of the four archangels in Golden Dawn. This would more hint towards Michael to me. Not an expert, but the kind of the fire and the red. But outside of that, it would still be Eros or that kind of angel of love kind of feel. Now, the biggest difference between the two cards is this male and female that are, first of all, stark proverbial naked, to kind of skip the swear word on YouTube, and are separate from each other. In here they're clothed and they're all quite close. Here they're quite separate. So it really is showing that this polar opposites kind of thing. We can see that the woman is aware of the angel and looking up, and the man is looking over to them. Yeah. Behind them we see the tree of life with 12 what Waite calls fruits, which to me look like flamey leaves. It looks like the burning bush, which is a Christian parable. And here we've got the tree of knowledge with 4 apples, and the snake winding up. So this is kind of like the Garden of Eden after the fall, and that kind of ideal paradise. And we are talking about opposites coming together in union that is divinely sanctioned. So this card is more about love. It is more about clear love. One male suitor, one female suitor. There's not a lot of other things. So love, beauty, perfection. Beauty especially because in the Golden Dawn tradition this would be linked to the Kabbalistic Sephiroth of Tiferet, the 6th, which means beauty. So this is kind of linked to those principles. In the 6 in some numerological traditions is linked to Venus. In most Western occultism it would be linked to the sun. And look at this great big sun that's radiating. It does almost look like a Tiferet, like radiating down. This, I think Rachel Pollock is someone that kind of mentions this one mountain between them, where they kind of join together in union of one. And the floor beneath them looks very different. This almost looks a bit watery and ripply, and this one looks solid and earthy. So it's once again talking about these opposites. Now, the big thing about this card, especially for us LGBTQIA+, and all the other letters in between people, is that it's very traditional values. It is very about male, female, which can be a bit jarring. You may have seen my unboxing of the Modern Witch deck, which I have here. They do have a version of it that is just women, because it is a woman only deck. I can't find it quickly. Nope. So, oh, is that it? No, that's Judgment. So there are some decks that allow that kind of extra level. I I love the idea that this could be any people. It doesn't have to be man and woman. It doesn't have to be woman man. It could be woman woman, man man, undecided, gender queer. It doesn't really matter in terms of meaning if you were reading it as love. I think Rachel Pollack in her book 78 Degrees of Wisdom talks about the original Plato idea that people were originally male female, male male, or female female until Zeus decided to split them apart because they were too powerful, and now we have to go around and look for other halves, which is that idea of love in kind of Greek philosophy. But the point there is that it made reference to same gender relationships, excuse me, T coming back. So, you know, it doesn't have to be woman woman, man man. It can just be anything. So don't get too held up on the pictures that were kind of created in the 1700s and have been repeated ever since. Just see it as concepts that are depicted. I try to, and I've never had too much of an issue, but you know, when we are talking about the lovers, and this one's a little bit more tricky because at least you've got kind of two women on this one and it's all a bit confusing. This one's very gender binary, and that's because of that polarity in Western esotericism and that union of opposites nature of the Kabbalah and well, the Western interpretation of the Kabbalah at least, and that kind of aspects. But just kind of break outside of it a little bit. So divinatory wise, as we've talked about, this card can mean union, therefore it can mean marriage. It can also mean love, and it can also mean beauty. The other indications, I mostly read it as choice in the kind of French tradition, as well as this 6 being a road or a path or a journey or a crossroads. And I think some of the other 6s in the minor arcana kind of are a little bit more road, path, journey-esque. So those are the kind of the main meanings of this card, and that's kind of it in principle. Cool. So that is essentially the whole of the tarot card. It's quite a simple card, but actually kind of confusing to look at. So I hope that was kind of a little bit of an insight into this tarot card and how to read this tarot card in different spreads and different ways of understanding those principles. That kind of goes over its name, its number, and its imagery pretty well. So if you have any questions or comments or would like more, please put a comment below. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. And I look forward to seeing you next time as we discuss the 7th card, which is the Chariot.